The cold vacuum of space seemed to press against the viewport as Juhu Park stared into the endless black. 50 years had passed since humanity's exile. 50 years of struggle, innovation, and quiet rage. She placed her hand against the reinforced glass, feeling the slight vibration of the HSS Retribution's engines beneath her palm. "Captain, final systems check complete," announced her first officer, Tae-hyun Kim. "The Retribution is ready for her maiden voyage." Juwoo nodded, turning away from the stars to face her bridge crew. All of them had been born in exile. None had ever seen Earth or the gleaming human colonies that once dotted Council space. They knew only the harsh frontier worlds humanity had been forced to call home. "Begin departure sequence," she ordered, settling into the captain's chair. The bridge hummed with activity as officers carried out her commands. The Retribution, humanity's first true warship built entirely with exile technology, slowly pulled away from the orbital dock. The ship represented hope. After the Doran Empire had manufactured evidence of human aggression and manipulated the Galactic Council into exiling humanity, few believed they would survive, let alone thrive. The Dorans, ancient, powerful, and deeply threatened by humanity's rapid advancement, had expected humans to wither and die. But humans proved resilient. In their isolation, cut off from galactic trade networks and confined to resource-poor systems, necessity became the mother of invention. Human engineers learned to do more with less. Materials that other species considered worthless became foundations for new technologies. Energy systems grew more efficient. Computing became more adaptive. As the Retribution cleared the shipyard, Juwoo thought back to her childhood. Growing up in cramped habitat domes on a world too cold for comfort, listening to her parents speak of Earth and the colonies with a deep longing. Her mother had been a physicist at the Academy on Mars when the exile came. Her father, a diplomat who had tried desperately to avert the Council's judgment. Entering orbit, reported Ensign Ji-hoon, the young navigator. All systems nominal. The ship moved with surprising grace for its size. Unlike the boxy, efficient vessels that made up most of humanity's small fleet, the Retribution had been built for combat. Its sleek hull concealed advancements that would shock the Galactic Council, if they ever saw them. "Captain," message from command, called Lieutenant Mayung from communications. "Admiral Lee requests visual confirmation of successful launch." Juwoo nodded, and the main view screen shifted to display Admiral Sunho Lee's weathered face. The old man had been just a junior officer when humanity was cast out. Now his hair was gray, his face lined with the burden of leading humanity's defense forces with minimal resources. "Retribution, your departure looks clean," the Admiral said. "How does she handle?" "Like a dream, sir," Juwoo replied. "Engineering reports all systems exceeding design parameters by 8%. The Admiral's expression remained solemn. "Good. The Council never expected us to build anything like this. They thought they'd broken us." His eyes hardened. "Show me the Phantom Drive." Juwoo glanced at her chief engineer, who nodded confidently. Phantom Drive engaging in 3, 2, 1. The stars on the view screen blurred, but not in the familiar pattern of standard faster-than-light travel. Instead, reality seemed to fold around them, the fabric of space bending to the Retribution's will. The ship didn't so much travel through space as it slipped between its layers. The Phantom Drive was humanity's greatest achievement in exile, a propulsion system that utilized dimensions other species had never thought to explore. It left no trace, no radiation signature, nothing for tracking systems to detect. A ghost in the vast emptiness. After 10 seconds, Juwoo ordered the drive disengage. The Retribution emerged 20 light minutes from its starting position, a journey that should have taken hours. Admiral Lee's face showed rare emotion, pride mixed with vindication. 50 years they gave us to die out, he said quietly. Instead, we've evolved. Juwoo understood the weight of the moment. The Retribution wasn't just a warship, it was a statement. Humans would not fade away. They would not be forgotten. Later that evening, after completing the ship's trial runs, Ju retired to her quarters. On her desk sat a small frame containing the only photo she had of her younger sister, Sora. Born in exile like Ju, Sora had become a scientist, working at one of the frontier research stations. Ju picked up the frame, tracing her sister's smiling face with her finger. Sora represented everything the Retribution was built to protect, the future generations who deserve more than exile and hardship. A chime from her door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called. Chief Engineer Hyunwoo stepped in, holding a data tablet. "Captain, final diagnostics on the shield systems. They're performing even better than we hoped." Unlike conventional energy shields used throughout the galaxy, the Retribution's defenses were adaptive, learning from attacks and evolving to counter them. The more they were hit, the stronger they became. "The Cascade weapons?" Ju asked. "Ready for deployment," Hyunwoo confirmed, "though I hope we never need to use them." The Cascade system was perhaps their most fearsome innovation. Weapons that didn't merely destroy their targets but disabled them by cascading through their systems, turning their own energy against them. Developed with minimal resources during exile, they were devastating yet precise. "As do I," Ju said softly, though both knew the truth. The Retribution had not been built merely for defense or deterrence. Somewhere out in Council space, the Dorans continued their manipulation of galactic politics, believing they had neutralized the human threat forever. How wrong they were. That night, as the Retribution cruised through the stars, Ju dreamed of Earth, a planet she had never seen except in old recordings. She dreamed of oceans and mountains and cities filled with people. She dreamed of a home she had never known. When she woke, her resolve was stronger than ever. The Retribution would remain hidden for now, conducting silent patrols along the exile boundary, training its crew, perfecting its systems. The galaxy believed humans were barely surviving on the fringes, struggling just to feed themselves. Let them believe that, Ju thought as she prepared for her morning shift. Let them underestimate us. Their surprise will be all the greater when they learn what exile has taught humanity, that adversity breeds innovation, and that when backed into a corner, humans don't cower. They evolve. The emergency alert jolted Ju from her sleep, red warning lights bathing her quarters in an ominous glow. She reached for her uniform before her feet touched the floor. "Captain, to the bridge," came the tense voice of Lieutenant Myung over the comm. Ju dressed quickly, her mind racing. The Retribution had been patrolling the exile boundary for 6 months without incident. Something had changed. When she stepped onto the bridge, the tension was palpable. Her officers stood rigid at their stations, faces grim in the dim light. "Report," she ordered, taking her seat. Taehyun turned to her, his eyes haunted. "Science Outpost Epsilon has gone dark." Last transmission indicated they were under attack. Ju's heart skipped a beat. "Epsilon, where Sora worked." "Show me," she commanded, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. The main screen displayed satellite imagery of the outpost, or what remained of it. The domed structures had been shattered, debris scattered across the moon's barren surface. No signs of life appeared on the scans. "Survivors?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "None detected," Taehyun replied softly. "Initial scans indicate over 3,000 casualties." The attack was thorough. Ju gripped the armrests of her chair until her knuckles turned white. Sora was gone. The reality of it threatened to crush her, but she forced the grief down. Later. She would mourn later. "The attacking vessels?" she asked. "Left minimal traces, but our sensors detected Doran energy signatures. This matches the pattern of the previous attacks on Mining Station Theta and Agricultural Colony Gamma." For months, human settlements had reported raids, missing personnel, stolen resources. But this was different. This wasn't a raid. It was a massacre. "Contact Admiral Lee," Ju ordered. "Priority channel." Within minutes, the Admiral's face appeared on screen. He looked older than he had 6 months ago, the burden of leadership etched deeper into his features. "I've seen the reports," he said without preamble. "I'm sorry about your sister, Captain." Ju nodded, unable to speak for a moment. "Sir, this is the third attack in 2 months. We need to act." "The Council ignores our messages," the Admiral replied. "The Dorans block any attempt at formal complaint. They believe we lack proof." "Then we'll get proof," Ju said, her voice hardening. "The Retribution was built for this. Let us cross the boundary. Let us find evidence the Council cannot ignore." The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Crossing the Exiled boundary was forbidden. It would risk further punishment, perhaps even military action against the remaining human colonies. "The Defense Council has voted," he finally said. "The Retribution is authorized to proceed beyond the Exiled boundary. Your mission is to gather evidence of Doran aggression, locate any human captives, and if possible, present your findings directly to the Galactic Council." A murmur ran through the bridge crew. None of them had ever ventured beyond the boundary. None had seen aliens except in historical records and training simulations. "You understand the risks," the Admiral continued. "If you're captured, the government will deny authorizing this mission." "We understand," Ju replied. "We won't fail." After the transmission ended, Ju called the ship to battle stations. The Retribution's crew had trained for this moment, but training was different from reality. "Set course for the Proxima boundary marker," she ordered. "Prepare the Phantom Drive." As the ship accelerated toward the invisible line that had contained humanity for 50 years, Ju addressed her crew over the ship-wide comm. "Today we venture into territory no human has entered in half a century," she said. "We go not seeking war, but justice. We go for those we've lost, and those who may yet be saved. Every one of us was born in exile, but today we take back our right to exist among the stars." The boundary crossing itself was anticlimactic, just another sector of empty space. But every person aboard felt the weight of the moment as the Retribution slipped past the marker buoys that had defined the limits of their existence. Once safely beyond the boundary, the ship activated its Phantom Drive. The Retribution vanished from normal space, becoming untraceable to standard Council detection systems. Their first target was a known Doran outpost near the Cygnus trading lanes. Intelligence suggested it might be a processing center for resources taken from human colonies. For 3 crew members, the mission was deeply personal. Security Chief Juno had lost his parents in the attack on Mining Station Theta. Navigator Jihoon's brother had disappeared during a raid 6 months earlier, and Ju carried the fresh wound of Sora's death. As they approached the Doran outpost, tension filled the bridge. Most of the crew had never seen an alien vessel up close. "Scan the station," Ju ordered. "Full spectrum." The results confirmed their suspicions. The outpost's cargo bays contained materials bearing human manufacturing signatures. But more disturbing were the life signs, hundreds of them, showing human biosignatures. "They're keeping our people there," Taeyun said, his voice tight with anger. Ju studied the station schematic. "We need more than just readings. We need visual confirmation, data records, evidence the Council can't dismiss." They observed the station for 3 days, recording ship movements, collecting transmission data. On the 3rd day, they intercepted a disturbing communication between the station commander and a Doran military vessel. "The human specimens are responding well to the procedure," the message read. "Genetic extraction continues as planned. The Council remains unaware of our activities." Juwoo's blood ran cold. The Dorans weren't just taking resources, they were experimenting on humans. The final piece of evidence came when they tracked a Doran vessel to a remote asteroid field. Hidden among the rocks was a secret facility where captured humans were being held. The Retribution's advanced sensors recorded everything: the movement of prisoners, the experimental chambers, the genetic samples being loaded onto transport ships. "This is it," Ju said, reviewing the evidence they had gathered. "This is what we need to show the Council." But reaching the Council would not be easy. Their headquarters orbited the Doran homeworld, deep in the heart of protected space. Even with the Phantom Drive, Getting there undetected would test the limits of the ship and its crew. As they plotted their course, Ju spent a quiet moment in her quarters. She touched the photo of Sora, now joined by images of Epsilon Outpost before its destruction. "We'll make this right," she whispered. "I promise." The Retribution moved deeper into Council space, a ghost ship carrying the truth humanity had paid for in blood. They were no longer exiles trying to survive. They were seekers of justice, prepared to show the galaxy what the Dorans had done, and what humans were capable of when pushed too far. 7 days into Council space, the Retribution drifted silently near Outpost 47, a remote monitoring station at the edge of the Vega sector. The human warship had activated its debris cloak, a technology that scattered sensor readings and made the vessel appear as nothing more than a cluster of space debris. "Maintain position," Ju ordered quietly, as if worried her voice might somehow carry through the vacuum of space to the nearby station. The bridge crew worked in near silence, monitoring communications and scanning for any sign their presence had been detected. So far, their journey had been uneventful. They had avoided populated systems and kept to the shadows between stars. "Captain, incoming transmission from the outpost," Lieutenant Mayung reported suddenly, her fingers dancing across her console. "They're sending a distress call." "Put it through," Ju commanded. The message was fragmented, panic evident in the alien voice despite the unfamiliar language. The ship's translation system worked quickly. "Under attack. Council Transport Meridian requesting immediate assistance. Doran vessel has disabled our engines and is forcing boarding. We are a diplomatic vessel. We carry no weapons." Ju-Woo leaned forward in her chair. On screen, the view screen shifted to show a sleek council transport, its elegant design marred by weapon impacts along its hull. A much larger Doran cruiser loomed nearby, its predatory shape unmistakable from the intelligence briefings. "Magnify," she ordered. The image zoomed in on the transport's airlock, where armored Doran soldiers were forcing their way inside. The council species were unlike anything most of the crew had seen outside of historical records. Tall, slender beings with iridescent skin that seemed to shimmer even in the grainy footage. "They're executing the crew," Security Chief Juno reported grimly, pointing to a section of the screen where Doran soldiers were lining up captives. Ju-Woo's hands tightened on her armrests. The mission parameters were clear: observe and gather evidence without engaging. Direct contact with Council forces was to be avoided at all costs. But as she watched the Dorans prepare to execute the helpless Council diplomats, something hardened in her chest. "Disable the debris cloak," she said, her voice steady. "Power up all systems. Weapons ready." Her first officer, Taehyun, turned to her with wide eyes. "Captain, orders were to avoid contact." "I'm aware of our orders," Ju replied. "But I will not sit by and watch another massacre." Her gaze swept the bridge. "Any objections?" The crew exchanged glances, then straightened at their stations. No one spoke against her decision. "Targeting systems online," reported the weapons officer, Minjae, his young face set with determination. "Cascade emitters charged and ready." "Take us in," Ju ordered. Full tactical display. The Retribution shed its disguise like a snake shedding its skin. Where once there appeared to be only drifting debris, now a sleek warship emerged, midnight black against the starfield, its hull design unlike anything in Council space. "Hail the Doran vessel," Ju commanded. The Doran commander's face appeared on screen, reptilian features arranged in an expression of surprise and contempt. "Human vessel," he hissed, the translation system working to convert his words. "You dare violate your exile. Your presence is illegal. Depart immediately or be destroyed." "This is Captain Ju Park of the HSS Retribution," she replied calmly. "You are attacking a diplomatic vessel in neutral space. Release your prisoners and withdraw." The Doran commander's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile. "Humans giving orders. Your technology is primitive, your weapons obsolete. You survived exile. Congratulations. Now return to your designated sector before we reduce your ship to atoms." Jiwoo cut the transmission with a gesture. "They've targeted us with their main batteries," Taehyun reported. "Energy readings suggest they're powering weapons to maximum." "Shields up," Jiwoo ordered. "Prepare for impact." The Doran cruiser fired, brilliant beams of energy stabbing through space toward the Retribution. The human crew braced for impact, many closing their eyes. But the expected shudder never came. The Retribution's adaptive shields absorbed the attack, the energy dissipating across their surface in ripples of blue light. "Shields holding at 92%, reported Engineer Hyunwoo, amazement in his voice. "The adaptive matrix is already reconfiguring to counter their weapon frequency." The Doran ship fired again, this time with all weapons. Again, the shields held, the energy bleeding away harmlessly. "Shields at 87%, Hyunwoo said. "Adaptation complete. Next hit will be less effective." On screen, the Doran vessel was already turning to bring more weapons to bear. "Target their weapon systems," Jiwoo ordered. "Cascade emitters only. I want that ship disabled, not destroyed." Minji's fingers flew across his console. "Targeting complete. Cascade weapons locked. Fire." The Retribution's primary weapons activated, not with destructive energy beams, but with precisely modulated pulses that seemed almost delicate compared to the Doran's brutal assault. Where they struck the Doran hull, they created no explosions, no visible damage. Instead, ripples of disruptive energy cascaded across the enemy ship's systems. Within seconds, the lights on the Doran cruiser began to flicker and die. Its weapons powered down, thrusters sputtered, and communications ceased. "Direct hit," Minji announced. "Cascade effect has disabled their primary systems. Estimated recovery time, 6 hours minimum." Jiwoo nodded. "Move us between the cruiser and the transport. Prepare boarding teams. We're going to rescue those diplomats." The next hour was organized chaos as human security teams boarded the Council transport, securing the vessel and providing aid to the injured diplomats. The surviving Council members regarded their human rescuers with shock and confusion, many having never seen a human in person before. The Retribution's medical team treated the wounded while security teams documented everything. The Doran attack, the intended executions, the recovered data from the transport systems showing this wasn't an isolated incident. "Captain," Taehyun called from his station. "Multiple ships approaching at high speed. Council signatures." Jiwoo straightened her uniform. "This is the moment of truth," she said quietly. "Maintain position. Keep weapons powered down but shields at full." 3 Council warships emerged from hyperspace, their sleek forms bristling with weapons. All were immediately trained on the Retribution. "We're being hailed," Mayum reported. "On screen," Jiwoo replied. The face that appeared belonged to a species Jiwoo recognized from her studies. A Telleran, one of the founding races of the Galactic Council. His blue skin and 4 eyes marked him as a high-ranking official. "Human vessel," he began, voice cold. "You are in violation of exile restrictions. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded." "Admiral," one of his officers spoke off-screen. "The Doran cruiser, it attacked the diplomatic transport. The humans, they saved our people." The Admiral's 4 eyes blinked in succession. "Explain yourself, human." Jiwoo stood tall. "I am Captain Jiwoo Park of the HSS Retribution. We intercepted a distress call and witnessed the Doran vessel attacking your transport. We intervened to save lives." She paused. "We have evidence that this is not an isolated incident. The Dorans have been attacking human settlements for months, killing thousands and taking captives." The Admiral studied her with all 4 eyes. A human ship, with technology capable of disabling the Doran cruiser. He seemed to be speaking more to himself than to her. "Impossible." "With respect, Admiral," Jiwoo replied. "Many things thought impossible have become necessary for our survival." A long silence followed as the Admiral conferred with his officers off-screen. Finally, he turned back to the camera. "Captain Park, your presence in council space remains a violation of law. However," he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully, "given the circumstances, I am authorized to escort you to council headquarters, where your evidence may be formally presented." It wasn't quite victory, but it was a beginning. As the Retribution fell into formation with the council vessels, Zhu gazed at the stars ahead. The path to justice had opened before them. The council station gleamed against the backdrop of space, a massive ring structure that rotated slowly around an artificial sun. Zhu had seen images in historical archives, but nothing prepared her for the reality. A monument to cooperation among species that had excluded humanity for 50 years. The Retribution approached slowly, flanked by council escort vessels. Through the view screen, Zhu could see hundreds of ships docked at the station, representing dozens of species from across the galaxy. "They're staring at us," Taehyun said quietly, looking at the external camera feeds showing ships altering course to observe the human vessel. "Let them stare," Zhu replied. "We didn't come here to hide." As they docked, a message arrived from Admiral Korin, the Telleran who had escorted them. "Captain Park, a security detail will escort you to the council chamber. The emergency session begins in 1 hour. You may bring 2 officers." Zhu chose Taehyun and Mayung to accompany her. Both had lost family in Doran attacks. Both deserved to witness this moment. The station corridors were filled with beings of every description. Tall, short, furred, scaled, some floating rather than walking. All stopped to stare at the 3 humans passing by, many backing away in fear or surprise. "They act like they've seen ghosts," Mayung whispered. "To them, we are ghosts," Zhu answered. "Forgotten relics they never expected to see again." The council chamber was a vast amphitheater with 700 seats arranged in rising tiers. At the center stood a circular platform where speakers addressed the assembly. The room hummed with angry voices as they entered. "Silence," bellowed a massive being with crystalline skin who stood at a raised podium. "The emergency session of the Galactic Council will come to order. The humans will approach the speaking platform." Zhu walked forward, her heart pounding but her steps steady. She had rehearsed this moment countless times, yet now faced hundreds of alien faces, most hostile, some merely curious. "I am Captain Zhu Park of the human vessel Retribution," she began, her voice clear in the sudden quiet. "I come before you with evidence of crimes committed against humanity and against council law." A roar of protest erupted from one section of the chamber. A Doran representative rose, his scaled face contorted with rage. "This is an outrage," he hissed. "These humans violate their exile, intrude in council space with a warship, and you permit them to speak. They should be arrested immediately." The crystalline being, the High Counselor, raised a glittering hand. "Ambassador Vex, the Council granted the humans this hearing in light of evidence provided by Admiral Korin. They will speak." Zhu activated the data crystal containing their evidence. Above the platform, holographic images appeared: the destroyed human outposts, the Doran attacks, the captives. "For months, Doran ships have raided human settlements," she explained. "They have killed thousands of our people and taken countless others captive. When we sent messages through official channels, they were blocked or ignored." She showed footage from the science outpost where Sora had died, the images of destruction, stark and terrible. "This was a civilian research facility," she said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "Over 3,000 people died here, including my sister." The chamber had grown quieter as she spoke, many counselors leaning forward to study the evidence. "We tracked Doran ships to secret facilities," Zhu continued, showing the recordings they had made. "They are conducting genetic experiments on human captives, harvesting biological materials." Ambassador Vex leaped to his feet again. "Fabrications. The humans have always been skilled at deception. These are clearly manufactured images designed to turn the Council against the Doran Empire." The evidence was verified by Council security systems. Admiral Corrin interjected. Furthermore, the human vessel Retribution intervened when a Doran cruiser attacked a Council diplomatic transport. They saved 43 Council citizens from execution. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Several councilors turned accusatory gazes toward the Doran section. Jiwoo played their final piece of evidence, the Doran commander's own transmission about human specimens and keeping the Council unaware. For a moment, silence held the chamber. Then the Doran ambassador laughed, a cold, hissing sound that echoed across the room. "Very well," he said, his voice suddenly calm. "Since subtlety has failed, perhaps directness will suffice." He touched a device on his wrist. Instantly, alarms began to sound throughout the station. "Multiple ships exiting hyperspace," came an urgent voice over the station's comm system. "Doran signatures, count exceeding 100 vessels. They're surrounding the station." Panic erupted in the Council chamber. The view screens activated automatically, showing a massive Doran fleet taking position around the station. Warships of every size, their weapons charged and ready. The main screen flickered, then displayed the face of an elderly Doran, his scales darkened with age, eyes cold and calculating. "Esteemed councilors," he began, his voice dripping with mock courtesy. "I am Emperor Kraz of the Doran Empire. I apologize for this unconventional appearance." The High Counselor stepped forward. "Emperor Kraz, what is the meaning of this? Your fleet threatens the Council station itself." "A regrettable necessity," the Emperor replied. "For centuries, the Doran Empire has guided the Council from the shadows, ensuring galactic stability. We have eliminated threats before they could disrupt the order we established." His gaze fixed on Jiwoo. He straightened, all pretense of diplomacy falling away. "My terms are simple. Surrender the humans and their vessel to us immediately, or this station and all aboard will be destroyed. You have 30 minutes to comply." The transmission cut off, leaving the chamber in chaos. Species that had been enemies for generations now huddled together in fear, watching the surrounding Doran fleet on the view screens. The High Counselor called for order, her crystalline form flashing with agitation. "Council defenses cannot repel a fleet of this size. Evacuation is impossible with their ships blocking all escape routes." Jiwoo stepped forward again. "There is another option." The chamber quieted, hundreds of alien eyes turning to her. "The Retribution was built to fight," she said simply. "We will engage the Doran fleet, create a gap in their formation. That will give your ships time to evacuate the station." Laughter erupted from several counselors. "1 ship against 100, scoffed a massive, tentacled being. "Even your arrogance cannot be this great, human." "You haven't seen what our ship can do," Jiwoo replied calmly. "We developed technologies in exile that the Dorans cannot counter. We can buy you time." Admiral Corrin approached her. "Captain Park, this would be suicide." "Perhaps," she agreed, "but we came seeking justice. If we cannot have it, we will at least ensure the truth is known." She looked around the chamber. "The Dorans feared humanity enough to exile us. Today, you'll see why." The High Counselor conferred quickly with her security advisors, then addressed the chamber. "We have no alternative. The human vessel will attempt to create an evacuation corridor, while Council ships prepare for emergency departure." As the Council dissolved into frantic activity, Jiwoo contacted her ship. "Taehyun, Mayung, we're returning immediately." Battle stations. They walked quickly through the now panicked corridors, aliens rushing past them in all directions. Mayung touched Jiwoo's arm. "Captain, can we really do this? 1 ship against their entire fleet." Jiwoo's expression was determined. "We're not just 1 ship, Lieutenant. We're humanity's answer to 50 years of exile." She quickened her pace. "Let's show them what that means." The Retribution glided away from the Council station, alone against the vast Doran fleet that surrounded them like predators circling wounded prey. Inside the ship, the crew moved with quiet efficiency, each person acutely aware that they faced impossible odds. Ju settled into the captain's chair, her face calm despite the fear that twisted in her stomach. "Tactical display," she ordered. The view screen showed their situation in stark clarity. 117 Doran warships arranged in a sphere around the station. The Doran flagship, twice the size of any other vessel, hung at the center of the formation. "All stations report ready," Taehyun announced from beside her. "The crew awaits your orders." Ju took a deep breath. "Deploy the mirror drones." From the Retribution's launch bays, 24 small, unmanned craft shot into space. Developed during exile using minimal resources, these drones could mimic the energy signature of the Retribution itself, creating false targets. "Drones deployed and active," reported Minje from weapons control. "The Dorans are detecting multiple human vessels." On the view screen, they watched as the Doran fleet reacted with confusion, weapons targeting the phantom ships that seemed to appear from nowhere. "Now for the hard part," Ju said. "Activate Nova Core. Prepare for dimensional shift." Engineer Hyunwoo's hands moved across his console with practiced precision. "Nova Core online. Dimensional shift in 3, 2, 1. The Retribution shuddered as its revolutionary drive activated. Unlike conventional engines that pushed through normal space, the Nova Core folded space itself, allowing the ship to slip between dimensions that most species never thought to explore. To the watching council ships, the Retribution seemed to blur, becoming translucent before vanishing completely. "We've shifted," Hyunwoo confirmed. "Existing between standard dimensions, we're invisible to conventional sensors." "Take us through their formation," Ju ordered. "Target the command ships first." The Retribution moved like a ghost through the Doran fleet, passing directly through what appeared to be solid matter in normal space. The crew watched in tense silence as they navigated between enemy vessels that could not see them. "In position behind the first command ship," Taehyun reported. "Ready to shift back." Ju nodded. "Shift and fire." The Retribution snapped back into normal space directly behind a Doran command cruiser. Before the enemy could react, the human vessel fired its cascade weapons. The precise energy pulses struck the Doran ship, spreading through its systems like a virus, disabling rather than destroying. "Target neutralized," Minju reported. "Shifting again." For 10 minutes, they repeated this pattern, shifting between dimensions, appearing behind Doran vessels, firing, and vanishing before the enemy could respond. 6 command ships drifted powerless, their weapons and engines disabled by the cascade effect. The Doran fleet broke formation, ships firing wildly into empty space, hoping to hit the phantom vessel that struck from nowhere. "They're adapting," Security Chief Junho warned. "Their sensors are being recalibrated to detect dimensional shifts." Ju had expected this. "Switch to Phase 2. Deploy the Nova Mines." Small, innocuous devices ejected from the Retribution, drifting through the Doran formation. Each contained a miniature version of the Nova Core, designed to create localized dimensional disruptions. "Mines in position," Minja confirmed. "Activating on your mark." "Mark," Ju said. The mines activated simultaneously. Across the battlefield, spheres of warped space appeared, catching Doran ships in their effect. The enemy vessels distorted, parts of them existing in different dimensions at once, their systems failing as physical laws conflicted. On the council station, aliens watched in stunned silence as the single human ship systematically dismantled the Doran fleet. Technologies they had never imagined were being deployed with devastating effectiveness. "Their flagship is turning," Taehyun reported. "They're preparing to flee." Jumu leaned forward. "Not today. Prepare the phantom jump." This was their most closely guarded secret, the ability to make precise, instantaneous jumps through space without conventional hyperdrive. It was theoretically impossible according to Council science, yet another innovation born from 50 years of exile. "Phantom jump calculated," Navigator Ji-hoon announced. "Ready on your command." "Execute," Ju ordered. The retribution vanished, then reappeared instantly in the path of the fleeing Doran flagship. The enormous vessel tried to turn, but it was too late. Target their bridge, Ju commanded. Full cascade burst. The retribution's main weapons fired, the energy striking the flagship's command center with pinpoint accuracy. Systems failed across the massive ship, lights flickering out section by section. Open a channel to the Doran Emperor, Ju said. Emperor Kraz's face appeared on screen, his expression shifting from rage to disbelief. Impossible, he hissed. Your technology, it cannot exist. 50 years of exile taught us many things. Ju replied calmly. Surrender your fleet and order all Doran ships to stand down. The Emperor seemed to age before their eyes, his ancient confidence crumbling. What are you? We are human, Ju answered simply. And we refuse to be forgotten. The battle ended not with destruction, but surrender. The Doran fleet, faced with technologies they could neither understand nor counter, powered down their weapons. The Council Station, which had been preparing for destruction, instead witnessed a miracle, one ship standing victorious against 100. 3 days later, Ju stood before the Galactic Council again. This time, there was no anger or outrage, only stunned respect. The Council has voted unanimously, the High Counselor announced, her crystalline form shimmering in the chamber's light. Humanity's exile is hereby ended. Full reparations will be paid for the 50 years of unjust punishment. She paused, looking directly at Ju. Furthermore, the Doran Empire's manipulations have been exposed. Their influence in council affairs is ended. Their leadership will face justice for crimes against humanity and against the council itself. A cheer erupted from the gathered counselors. Something Ju was told had never happened before in the council's long history. Later, standing on the Retribution's observation deck, Ju watched as council ships approached the station bearing representatives, seeking diplomatic ties with humanity. Messages had been sent to Earth and the exile colonies, announcing their return to galactic society. Captain, Tae-yun said, joining her at the viewport. Admiral Lee reports that the hidden fleet is ready to emerge. Ju nodded. The Retribution had not been humanity's only secret. Throughout their exile, they had built other ships, developing different technologies, preparing for this day. Across the exile sector, human vessels were emerging from hidden shipyards and asteroid bases, not a massive armada, but a respectable fleet, each ship carrying innovations born from hardship. What now, Captain? Tae-yun asked quietly. Ju thought of Sora, and all those lost to Doran aggression. She thought of children born in exile who would now see the galaxy their parents had told them about in stories. Now we rebuild, she said, not to dominate, but to participate, not seeking revenge, but justice. She turned from the viewport. Humanity has earned its place among the stars. It's time we took it. As the Retribution prepared to escort the first diplomatic delegations back to Earth, Ju felt the weight of the past 50 years lifting. The exile had been meant to break humanity, to contain what the Dorans feared. Instead, it had forged something stronger, a humanity that understood its own potential and would never again allow itself to be forgotten. The end.